revelations about it. So I smoke DMT, and I have the experience, and I think to myself, my mind couldn't produce this. I have come into contact with a higher intelligence. A lot of people who sacramentally take these substances, and you've on your show, you've come in contact with them a lot. They report their experience is mystical. They feel like as though they're shamans. They feel as though that they're not making LSD for profit. They're making LSD for transformation, and they feel as though it feels as though they've come into contact with the divine. Do you feel that psychedelics connect us with a higher intelligence, or do you think this is a purely endogenous process that has nothing to do with some external force?
I think it's a purely endogenous process, and I think it's all the more amazing for that reason. I mean, give your mind some credit.
Right.
It's this is something that is happening in your brain as a result of your consciousness, your memories, your life. The DMT molecule contains no memories, it contains no information. It produces different effects for different people. It's a completely internal experience. And I don't think that diminishes it in any way. I think it makes it that much more amazing that it's possible, that people still don't understand how it happens, why it produces this sort of effect.
Yeah, no, this is like the Carl Sagan perspective. It's like, why do you need some extra thing? Like, it's already a beautiful thing that the planet spit out life at all, and then that life evolved to the point where it could have an interaction with chemicals in such a way as to achieve these transcendent states. I don't think you're saying this as though you know for certain, but how can you be sure that it's just your mind? How can you be certain that there isn't some communion happening when the history of shamanism, the history of taking these chemicals is one that has within it a built-in mythology that involves connection with entities or higher in consciousness?
I just don't think it has any explanatory value, ultimately. I don't think that it solves the mystery in any meaningful way to say that entities are supplying you with information. Then what are these entities? Why does this molecule only expose you to these entities, and why aren't they there all the time? If anything, it makes things more complicated. It seems like a really inelegant way to solve what is maybe the most important scientific question in the world.
Or the most important question in the world. And that question is, are we alone? You know, that's the question. And we're trying to answer that question. We're answering it with our telescopes.
I think we are.
We're trying to answer it, and we're trying to answer it with our radio telescopes. We're trying to answer it, and it's a question that people have been speculating about for a very long time.
You know, ultimately, it's however you want to, construct meaning, solve the mystery, however you want to do it. It's up to people to decide. It's like any other mystical thinking. If you want to believe in God, everyone is welcome to do that if they want to. It doesn't have much explanatory value for me, so I avoid it. And I think that humans have a tendency to fill in the cracks between their understanding with mystical thinking instead of accepting ambiguity and mystery, which is very uncomfortable. People want answers.
Right.
That's why people like shamanism, I think, is they want someone to say, you're vomiting because you're expelling toxins, negative memories, negativity from your body, you're cleansing yourself, as opposed to the truth, which is you're vomiting because of serotonin receptors in your intestine, and who knows what you ate earlier, and maybe there's no answer for why you're vomiting. Maybe you just have to accept the mystery of the origin of your vomiting, and no one will ever explain it.
You would be a fun person to take psychedelics with, but you would not be a good shaman, Hamilton. But you would be such a wonderful person, because in a way we need both. I think we need both. When I'm tripping out, it would be nice to have a Hamilton with me, and it would be nice to have some kind of deep shaman with me, so that like the shaman could say, yeah, that's your darkness, you're vomiting your darkness, because that lens is particularly beneficial. Whether or not it has some like quantifiable truth to it, it doesn't matter. It's if I'm vomiting and someone says to me, "That's your darkness, let it out," then it opens up a lot of room for healing. But then maybe as I'm puking and someone says, "That's your darkness, you need to get it out," I might be like, shut up, hippie. I don't feel good. Hamilton, what is this? It's just your fucking serotonin receptors, man. Don't worry. So it's beautiful. But I think
even that's limited. It's not as if you have this one little scientific explanation and that suddenly solves the mystery. Like,
right.
There's a site, the 5-HT2A receptor, that most classical psychedelics bind to, but it's not as if that explains it.
Right.
Knowing that they bind to this receptor doesn't explain anything, and then you go deeper as science evolves. Then you learn that there's functional activity at the receptor. Is it an agonist, an antagonist, a silent agonist, an inverse agonist? What is it doing?
Right.
And then there's a second, and then you go further. Well, what's the second messenger? What's the downstream effect? What systems are being activated? And the mystery keeps getting deeper. But I think the advantage of looking at these things scientifically is ultimately you are answering questions. Even if you're not answering the grand question, you're answering small questions. And as you answer all these small questions over the years, you're chipping away at consciousness. You're chipping away at an understanding of how the brain works, and that's a worthwhile pursuit.
Hamilton Morris, everybody, let him hear it. Beautiful.
I am a hardened materialist. I love science. I have a really profound love for science, and I think it's the best tool we have for understanding these states, and I've never felt that mysticism was necessary to explain things.